If you're hearing this, it means you've found my story, and I need you to listen carefully. Don't just scroll away, don't roll your eyes. What I'm about to tell you isn't a campfire tale or a movie script. It happened. To me. My name is Daniel. I'm 27, and until last summer I was just an ordinary guy from Arizona who liked road trips, late-night drives, and hanging out with my small circle of friends. But after that night in the desert, nothing about me or them has been ordinary again. And if something like this could happen to us, it could happen to you. We weren't thrill seekers chasing UFOs. We weren't ghost hunters or conspiracy nuts. We were just four friends on a weekend trip, driving out past the dunes near Yuma to camp under the stars. No signal, no traffic, just silence and the kind of darkness that makes you feel like you're staring into infinity. First, it was peaceful. Too peaceful. I remember sitting by the fire, sipping warm beer, when the stillness of the night became unnatural, like the desert itself was holding its breath. And then, out of nowhere, the sky lit up, not like lightning, not like a plane, but a blinding white-blue light that shimmered without sound, hovering above the horizon. We laughed at first, nervous laughs, pretending it was military testing or some strange weather phenomenon. But the light didn't move the way anything human-made should. It zigzagged, stopped dead in the sky, then shot upward so fast it left a glowing trail that burned into my eyes. My buddy Chris, always the jokester, grabbed his phone to record, but his screen just glitched out, static fuzzing across the glass. That was the first sign. The second was the humming, a deep vibration that rattled the cans around our fire, shook the ground under us, and made my teeth ache. The fire dimmed like someone turned down the oxygen, and then we saw it, an object descending above us. It wasn't a saucer, not the cliché kind you'd expect from movies. It was darker, more angular, like an obsidian pyramid hanging upside down in the night sky. Lights pulsed along its edges, soft at first, then intensifying, like it was studying us, locking onto us. And in that instant, every instinct in me screamed to run. But we didn't. We couldn't. My legs felt cemented to the sand as a column of light shot down from the craft, swallowing us whole. The last thing I remember before everything went black was Chris screaming my name, the sound stretching unnaturally, as though time itself was bending. I woke up in cold metal silence. My arms and legs were bound by something I couldn't see but couldn't break, and my body floated. Not lying, not standing, suspended in midair. My friends were there too, spaced apart, locked in the same impossible restraints. Their eyes darted wildly, mouths moving, but no sound came out. The chamber was vast and curved, walls alive with shifting patterns of pale light. No machinery, no wires, just smooth surfaces that seemed to breathe. And then they appeared, figures tall, thin, not entirely humanoid. Their skin shimmered translucent, veins glowing faintly blue beneath the surface. Heads elongated, eyes black and reflective, unblinking. They didn't speak, not with voices. Instead, pressure pressed into my skull, thoughts that weren't mine flooding in, words without sound. You are here to be studied. That's all they said, but it was enough to twist my stomach into knots. Because in that moment I knew we weren't chosen, we weren't lucky, and we weren't going home anytime soon. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. My throat worked, my chest heaved, yet silence smothered every sound. The others were the same, writhing in those invisible restraints, eyes bulging in sheer terror. Chris's face was purple from the effort of trying to shout, while Jessica's tears streamed upward, as if gravity no longer applied. I could feel my pulse in my ears, deafening, and then suddenly, it all stopped. We were dropped not onto the floor, but into another kind of suspension. The restraints loosened, and we floated downward into shallow pods, almost like glass coffins that molded themselves perfectly to our shapes. The surface beneath me was warm, pulsing faintly, like it was alive. Panic clawed at my chest, but when I tried to move, The walls of the pod pulsed tighter, holding me down. I don't remember closing my eyes, but darkness swept over me. When I opened them again, I was no longer in the pod. I was standing placed inside a bright white chamber, and the others were gone. Only silence, the kind that buzzes in your skull, remained. The walls were translucent, shapes moving behind them like shadows underwater. My heart hammered, but my body felt sluggish, like every muscle was filled with lead. Then one of them appeared directly in front of me. No doors, no sound of approach, it simply was there. Its head tilted, eyes locking with mine, and though it had no mouth, I felt the words tear through my mind. Fear sharpens the mind. We must measure it. The walls shifted, rippling like water, and I saw scenes flicker to life. My old bedroom, my father's workshop, the alley where I got mugged at 19. They were replaying my memories, twisting them, bending them into something rawer, darker. In one moment, I was reliving my mugging, only this time the knife cut deeper. The shadowy figure laughed louder, and I could smell my own blood. My body reacted, sweat pouring, hands trembling, but I knew it wasn't real. And still, my brain screamed otherwise. I could feel the alien feeding on that fear, not like a predator devouring prey, but like a scientist logging data. Every spike of panic, every flicker of rage, they recorded it. And then, as suddenly as it started, the memory dissolved, and I was back in the chamber, shivering, barely able to breathe. My alien observer didn't move, didn't blink, but I felt its judgment, as though my very existence had been reduced to a number on a chart. And then, behind me, a scream cut through the silence. Not in my head, real, raw, human. I spun around, and there was Jessica in a pod across the chamber. Her body convulsed as metallic tendrils, thin, silver, and alive, wrapped around her skull. Her eyes rolled back, veins in her temples bulging as the tendrils pulsed with faint light. Chris and Aaron were beside her, thrashing in their own pods, powerless to help. My chest heaved, fury boiling inside me, but I was frozen, helpless to intervene. Do not resist. The voice drilled into my head, calm and cold. This is necessary. But necessary for what? Were they dissecting us? Harvesting us? Or was it something worse? Something I couldn't even comprehend? My mind raced with every UFO story I'd ever heard. Every whispered rumor of missing people in deserts and forests. Every alien abduction, dismissed as delusion. Except this wasn't delusion. It was happening, and if Jessica's muffled screams were any indication, we weren't going to survive it. The alien tilted its head again, and my vision blurred. A sudden weight pressed on my skull, and I realized they were choosing me next. The pressure in my head intensified until it felt like my skull would crack open. My vision tunneled, black creeping in at the edges, but then, just as I thought I'd pass out, it all snapped into sharp clarity. I wasn't in the chamber anymore. I was in my mother's kitchen, the smell of coffee brewing, morning sunlight spilling through the blinds. For a moment I almost believed it, almost thought I had dreamed everything. But then I saw them, two of the tall, translucent beings, standing behind her, their enormous black eyes fixed on me. My mother didn't react. She moved around the kitchen, humming softly, oblivious to their presence. My stomach dropped. This wasn't memory. This was intrusion. They were fabricating, inserting themselves into my most familiar places, testing how far my mind would bend before it broke. "Stop it!" I screamed, or thought I did. My mother froze mid-step, her face twitching like a corrupted video file. Then her head snapped toward me, eyes darkening, voice layered and distorted. "We know you through what you fear to lose." I stumbled back, the kitchen walls melting into liquid metal, the floor vanishing beneath my feet. I fell, not physically, but my brain registered falling, spinning through a void until I landed back in the pod. My chest was heaving, sweat pouring down my back, but the pod's surface absorbed it like sponge. Across from me, Chris was sobbing, shoulders shaking violently. Aaron's eyes were wide open, unblinking, as though his mind had already been shattered. Jessica lay limp, tendrils retracting from her head, the faint rise and fall of her chest the only sign she was still alive. "Why us?" I thought, desperate, clawing at the silence. "Why are you doing this?" The response came instantly, cold and matter-of-fact. "Because you are simple. Because you are many. Because you are unnoticed." Rage flared inside me, and for a moment I tried to fight back, tensing every muscle, thrashing against the pod. The restraints pulsed harder, pinning me like a fly in amber. "Resistance teaches nothing," the voice echoed. "But pain does." A white-hot spike lanced through my skull, and suddenly my thoughts weren't private anymore. Memories were ripped from me. Birthdays, fights, first loves, heartbreaks, streaming past me like they were being downloaded. I wanted to hold on to them, to clutch at anything familiar, but each one was pulled away, catalogued, dissected. The alien's presence pressed harder. It wasn't just reading me, it was wearing me, slipping into my identity like trying on clothes. For a split second, I felt myself from the outside, saw my own face through its perception. And what terrified me most wasn't the invasion itself. It was the emptiness behind those eyes. There was no malice, no cruelty, just an absence of empathy so complete it made cruelty look kind. My pod suddenly released me, the surface peeling away. My body floated upward, weightless, until I was hanging in the air. The chamber around me shimmered, shifting into something new. A vast hangar, walls stretching so far they vanished into darkness. Hundreds, no thousands, of pods lined the walls, each holding a human form. Some were thrashing, some limp, some eerily still. My stomach twisted. We weren't the first. Not even close. The alien voice pulsed again. "You will adapt or you will break. Both serve our purpose." And as I dangled there, staring at rows upon rows of captured souls, I realized whatever was happening wasn't random. It was systematic. We weren't abductees. We were specimens. My body trembled in that endless hangar, every instinct screaming at me to fight, to run. But there was nowhere to go. Thousands of pods stretched into infinity, silent proof that humanity wasn't alone, and worse, that we weren't safe. I twisted in the air, searching for my friends. Finally, I saw them. Chris, Jessica, and Aaron, floating near the center of the chamber. Jessica's chest rose and fell shallowly. Chris was sobbing openly, face red and raw. Aaron's eyes were glazed, his lips moving silently as if he was praying. The sight of them grounded me. I couldn't let us become just more empty shells among thousands. "Let us go," I screamed inside my head, pushing the thought outward, unsure if it would even reach them. It did. The alien presence surged back immediately, pressing harder than ever. "You misunderstand. There is no letting go. There is only data, survival or collapse. We're not your experiments." I spat back in my mind, vision blurring with fury. "We're people." The chamber fell utterly still. Then, for the first time, something shifted. Not in the walls, not in the pods, but in the alien's voice. A flicker of hesitation. "People. Define." My breath caught. They didn't understand. They knew fear, pain, thought patterns, but not what bound us together, not what made us human. They weren't torturing for cruelty. They were dissecting what they couldn't comprehend. A desperate thought sparked. If fear was data to them, maybe something else could be too. Something they didn't expect. I forced myself to think of my friends. Not the terror in this chamber, but the warmth. The late-night drives with Chris blasting music too loud, Jessica's laugh around the campfire, Aaron's terrible jokes that always landed flat. I clung to those memories, pushed them outward, shoved every ounce of connection, loyalty, love into the void where the alien mind pressed against mine. For a moment, silence. Then shock. Not mine, there's this anomaly. Their voice trembled in my head, flickering between tones. Pain we know. Fear we know. This binding unknown. It's what makes us alive, I whispered inside. It's what makes us more than numbers. If you want to understand us, you need to understand that. My chest heaved, sweat dripping down my temples. I didn't know if it would work, if it could mean anything to being so alien. But something rippled through the chamber. The pods around us flickered with light, like a wave spreading across an ocean. The pressure in my skull eased. The restraints fell away. I dropped to the chamber floor, landing hard on my knees. My friends collapsed beside me, gasping, alive. The aliens didn't move closer, didn't stop us. They simply hovered, silent. Their black eyes locked onto us as though cataloging this final piece of data. A single thought pierced the silence, softer now. You are not finished. We will return. And then, blinding light. The chamber dissolved, the hangar faded, and we were falling down, down, until the sand of the desert slammed into my body. I coughed, choking on dust, the night air freezing on my skin. The fire we had made was gone. Our gear scattered, our truck half buried in sand. Hours had passed, maybe days. Jessica groaned, clutching her head. Chris sat in silence, eyes hollow, muttering the same word over and over. They'll come back. They'll come back. Aaron stared at the sky, tears cutting tracks through the dust on his face. None of us spoke about it after that night. Not to the police, not to our families. Who would believe us? We didn't even fully believe ourselves. But deep down, we all knew. We weren't chosen at random. We were studied, measured, tested. And somewhere out there, in the cold silence between the stars, they were still watching, waiting to continue what they started. So if you've heard me out this far, remember one thing. If you ever find yourself under a silent sky that suddenly hums, if the light above you doesn't move like it should, don't stand still. Don't try to record it. Don't even look. Just run. Because once they notice you, you're no longer a person. You're a specimen.